Chapter 10. Conversation in a Canoe. On either shore the trees showed up gaunt and black, twice as high as they looked in the daytime. There was no sound. Only the quiet talking of the current and the swash of the paddles, and once or twice the eerie whimper of an owl in the woods. It was an hour before Eben spoke. "Thanks, boys. Guess you got me out of a mighty poor spot back there," he chuckled softly. "Way things was shaping, it looked like I was due to have a mite of trouble when them red varmints got me back to their main outfit." Guy was faintly surprised. "Main outfit? Do you mean there are more of 'em?" "Sure do. That was only a scouting party. They caught me upriver after I'd got clear of the ruck of 'em. I walked right into 'em afore I knowed it." Willett spoke in a low tone, his voice pitched to carry no further than was necessary for them to hear him. Guy asked again, instinctively using the same quiet murmur. "How many of them are there? Are we likely to meet any more?" "Maybe. There's a whole lot coming down, Cherokees and Catawbas mostly, with some odds and ends of Tuscaroras and Yamassees. Could be 5,000 braves all told, I reckon." Eben spoke casually, and the impact of his words did not reach them at once. Then Alistair exclaimed, 5,000 men? But that is an invasion." "That's about the size of it," Willett spat over the gunwale into the water. "Ain't no finicking pee-wee's little scalp hunt. It's a sure enough war they're bent on." But where are they going, and against whom?" "Coming down on the settlements, like they been threatening to do for a long spell. Long as the Cherokees was peaceable, they couldn't risk it, because they wasn't strong enough without 'em. But now the Cherokees have struck the war post at last, and they're set on driving the white man out of the land." Alistair's voice was grim as he challenged. "Are you sure of all this, my friend? You seem to ken a great deal of their business." "Yes," Guy broke in. "How do you know of it, Eben?" Eben was silent for a long pause, while he seemed to collect his thoughts. There was a hint of reluctance in his manner when he spoke again, gruff and almost evasive. "I was born in this here colony. When I was a yonker, the Tuscaroras came down on us and tried to wipe out the settlers. They was smashed by the militia, after some hot fighting, and they never amounted to much since." His dexterous hand still wielded the steering paddle, as he went on with the tale. "It was that way with the Yamassees too, farther south. They said the white man was taking their land and driving away the game they lived on, and so they tried the same thing, and got the same medicine." "I expect they thought they were fighting for their country," Guy suggested. Alistair's voice came bitterly. "I expect they did, Guy. Even a savage Indian will try to keep his own land from an invader." Knowing that the Highlanders felt that way about the Hanoverians, Guy said no more. Eben grunted, with a nod, and resumed. "That was 30-odd years ago, in 1713. At that time the Cherokees was friendly to the British, and there was no settlers near 'em to take their land and spoil their hunting. But now folks are moving inland and getting closer, and they don't like it." Guy had heard of the great and powerful Cherokee nation who lived in the western hills, a proud, fierce tribe, famous in war. They would be a terrible enemy if they attacked. "But what has started them on this expedition you talk of?" he asked. "Surely there is no one near enough to do them harm, even now?" Eben laughed, a low, unpleasant sound. "There's some gents back on the Ohio as could answer that, maybe," he said. "Them as your friend was asking after, last time we met." "The French?" "Sure. The French hunt and trade mostly, like the Injuns themselves, and don't do much settling on farms down here. If they was to give a few presents, such as guns and powder and axes, and point to 'em that there was more to be got by going down to the British and taking 'em, don't you figure they'd listen? That made sense. The French would use every chance they could to make matters difficult for the English, but Guy was still inquisitive. "You still haven't said how you came to know of this raid," he challenged. "Who told you about it?" "The Cherokees," was the bald reply. The Cherokees? But you mean you spoke to them?" "I certainly did. They're friends of mine most times. I went up there to see 'em, and they was fixing to keep me in their big town until it was all over. They didn't want me to get mixed up in it, you see." "And you got away?" Eben nodded. All the while he was speaking he kept his voice low, and scanned both shores carefully, as if he could see in the dark. It seemed that he was still uneasy. "Yes," he murmured. "I ducked out of there and hit out for the lowlands. They was powerful mad at me, when they found out I'd skipped. That's why them scouts kept me alive to take back. If I'd just been any strange white man, they'd have done my business for me right off." "In that case, it is just as well that we got you clear," Alistair commented dryly, "or I'm thinking you would have got a warm welcome on your return." "That's true, by cracky. I sure owe you boys a heap of thanks, especially the yonker here." Guy made an embarrassed sound. He did not want thanks. All the same, it had been a lively evening while it lasted. Never would he forget the awful freezing sensation that ran up his spine when he knelt over Eben and suddenly realised that the Indian sentry was upon him. He shuddered. "I was near swooning when the fellow crept up behind me," he confessed. The sweat broke out all over him at the memory. "You done well," Eben complimented him. "Most folks wouldn't have tried it, nor got so far along before he twigged what was going on." For a while they floated on in silence. Then the sky paled mistily ahead, and they knew dawn was near. It was at this time that it occurred to Guy that they were going the wrong way. He did not know how far they had come downstream, but guessed they had lost a good deal of the ground they had made during their flight from the settlements. If they went on too long in this direction, they would soon be back where they started. The thought appalled him. They dared not do that. If they got too close to the inhabited lands, they would risk capture and the brutal punishment that went with it. His throat was dry as he asked, "How far are we from the settlements, Eben?" Willits considered. "A goodish way yet, son. Take a week's hard travelling before we get anywheres near." Alistair and Riach had the same idea as Guy, for Riach muttered something over his shoulder as he knelt in the bow. The two Scots murmured together, and then Alistair said, "When will it be safe for us to land? Do you think there is danger as far downstream as this?" "Could be." Eben's tone was flat and cool. "Them red boys move plenty fast when they're travelling. You might hand me back that rifle, yonker, just in case." Eben's long rifle with his powder horn and bullet pouch lay with a heap of other duffel just in front of Guy's knees. He lifted them and handed them back to the steersman, who checked at once to see if they were harmed. Eben grinned and slapped the walnut stock of the piece gently. "Fine," he said. "She's still loaded. I'll just change the priming to be on the safe side." While he did so, Guy examined the rest of the booty. It was not much, mostly hides of animal and some gourds, which were tied over their tops with tight bladders of skin. But there was a long knife too, and a rusty sword. He gave the latter to Alistair, who smiled with delight. It was a stout rapier, two-edged and basket-hilted, which had no doubt been captured from a white man. Alistair bent the blade in his hands and watched it spring back to its former straightness. "It is a Toledo blade," he exclaimed, "the best steel in the world." The sword seemed alive in his hands as he grasped it, and Guy knew without being told that Alistair had found the weapon which he understood better than any other. Smiling, Guy looked at the skin-covered pots and puzzled over them. "Feeling hungry?" Eben's voice came from behind him. "Get that skin off the top and dig in." Guy slashed the thong which tied out the gourds, and looked in slight disgust at the solid mass of dark fat which it contained. Gingerly, at the hunter's insistence, he tried a mouthful. To his relief, it was not unpalatable. He ate more and passed the gourd to the others. "It's pemmican," Eben told them. "The Injuns make it of crushed meat and berries. It's good grub when you're on the trail." Daylight came and still they swept on. All night they had paddled with the current. Guy did not know how far they had come, but reckoned that it must be a good many miles. "Surely we have outdistanced the Indians now," he said, unable to still his misgivings any longer. "Let us ashore, Eben. We will take our chance whether we escape them or no." "Keep paddling, sonny," returned the frontiersman. "You don't want to lose your scalp, do you? Besides, them folks down river have got to be warned, and the red critters move mortal fast. Take us all our time to get there first." Alistair broke in at this point. "We know you must get word to the settlements, but you understand that we cannot go back there. You know what would happen to us." Eben's face turned ugly. "Sure," he rasped. "And I know what had happened to you if the Injuns got you." "You said that the French are their allies," MacLeod objected. "They are our allies too. If we can reach them, we will be safe." "You'd never get through, Mac. The woods back there are full of Cherokees. They'd finish you afore you'd gotten half a day's march." Alistair smiled, and his dark eyes danced with a cold, hard light. His voice rang softly with a note as steely as his new Toledo blade. "That will be unco ill fortune, friend, but for all that we will venture it. We go ashore this minute, if you please." Willits grinned mirthlessly. His long rifle lay across his knees. "You're crazy, man," he gritted. "You can't do it." "Why not, Eben?" Guy pleaded. He too wanted to get out of the canoe, in which he felt that they had already been too long. Eben could carry on alone to warn the settlers. The hunter glowered at them through his shaggy hair. Then, swiftly, the rifle slid forward and covered them as he answered. "Because you're going to paddle till you bust, my boys. That's why."